So congratulations, new album coming in April.
Thank you.
So Heavy Sun is the name of it, and I keep hearing gospel. People keep throwing this word gospel around, but if you have a traditional idea of what that is, I'm going to let you explain what gospel is.
Well, gospel is becoming there's more operating under the banner of gospel now, I suppose. The Johnny Shepherd, one of the members of Heavy Sun, comes from the Zion Baptist Church in Shreveport, Louisiana. So it's very all about gospel there, trust me. And the band is called Hallelujah Train. I'm a visiting guitar player in that band, and that's how I met Johnny. So Johnny made himself available, and we brought him to Los Angeles to make this record. And our dream was to operate within the spirit of gospel, but to take it to the future if we could, which is what we like to do with any project that we do. We don't want to be mimicking anything that already exists. We try and take things to the future. So our idea was to have the beautiful feeling of harmony singing. So that's got congregation in it. And for us to, if there's to be church association, then let it be a church with no walls.
A lot of artists go into a studio when they're going to make an album with a collection of songs, and they maybe figure out what the arrangements are going to be. I have the sense that whenever you go into the studio with your own music, it's still very much a process. That's in the middle of the process. It's a creation. There aren't specific songs just laid out yet.
That's a fair assessment. We always have a target of sorts and a criteria that we operate by, and maybe the beginnings of song ideas. But the way I came up with record making, a lot of what we do is invented in the studio. So we run with some piece of excitement, and perhaps it's a riff, or even a title, or a subject matter that's interesting to us, and we add to that. We water the idea, and we water the riff and the sentiment, and then a song starts forming itself, as was very much the case with Heavy Sun, because we had mostly three writers, sometimes four, and we just hooked up, and we had a little writing table in Los Angeles outside on the front porch of my studio, and it had a little Brill building in it, if that means something to you.
Yes.
So we huddled up and brainstormed, exchanged ideas, and the songs came together quite quickly that way. But they were always built on top of something that had a beginning, a little bit, the seed, let's call it.
So a Daniel Lanois record isn't just a Daniel Lanois record.
No, a Daniel Lanois record. I've done some strict solo work before, but this is more. This is a group effort because the writers are Johnny Shepherd, Rocco DeLuca, myself, and then also Jim Wilson. So it was nice to be in the presence of this company. It meant that had a little bit more of a team spirit to it. If you drop the ball, then someone else might make a three-pointer.
Well, these are guys that you've worked with before. These are trusted people.
The fellas involved with Heavy Sun are all old friends. Johnny Shepherd is the newest friend, but I've worked with Rocco DeLuca over the years. We've composed together. We had a nice compositional arrangement with when we scored. When I was invited to score a video game called Red Dead Redemption, and I invited Rocco to join me on some of that. Jim Wilson I've been on the road with for years, and but Johnny Shepherd, he's the new kid on the block. We're happy to have him. Great singer, great organist, and a hymnologist, we call him. So he has a lot of knowledge with hymns, and that meant a lot to me with his understanding of harmony.
Well, the album gives a lot of space. There's a lot of, of musical introductions and interludes, but also the vocals, when they do come in, they're very important that they work together. I love the fact that there's space, and at the same time, the vocals are as important as they are the harmony of that?
Well, the spacing, yeah, there are nice instrumental passages in a lot of the songs, and that's nice. I think it allows my sense of melody to be established, and then when the vocals come in, you get that feeling of group singing. Group singing does not have a lot of ego in it because it's all about blending, and I believe that listeners feel that you know that we were we were in cahoots. We were there to blend, and that was the really fun part of making this record. You know that we would. I did something very unorthodox. We weren't singing behind a piece of glass. I invited everybody to come up to the console with me, and we sang to the speakers. And we did one stanza at a time, work out the harmonies, listen back, and make adjustments as we went along. So maybe in a 1 or 2 hour vocal session, we had a finish group singing performance.
Now, Daniel, there's some pretty important topics that you tackle in this record. I know that there's some political aspects to it, like a song that you just released called Power. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, of course, you know, power has an obvious sentiment. People got the power. Why can't we live together? Why can't we be together? Pardon me. And it just addresses the potency that an individual might have in them. And with a bit of get up and go, you can make a difference to your house, your street, your neighborhood, the people you care about. And that broadens to a bigger community, and then it could get to national and global and so on. So it starts in an individual, starts in the heart, and can really blossom from there. But that's it. It's a very simple message that we've all heard before. People got the power. People got the power, and it's nice to be reminded of it, you know, and open for interpretation. By the way, you know, we're not militant about this. We're just reminding people that they have it in them to make a difference to their own lives and other people's.
I think one of the things that I've always loved about your music, whether it was your solo recordings or if it was something you were doing with one of your musical projects or producing other people, my sense is that I feel like it takes me someplace, literally a sense of place in your music. You know, maybe it's because it's recorded in New Orleans or Los Angeles or wherever, or maybe it's really just something beyond that. But do you feel that your music, that you look for that to create a sense of place?
Well, we've always had a cinematic angle on the process of the work. You know, it just comes to me that a song will establish a location, even if not the location that we happen to be making it in, that it paints a picture of a place. And I think that's a really good start. And I don't know if it would qualify as a talent, but it's certainly an inclination and a place that I get to with my work, that at a certain point I start visualizing what it's about. We have a song called "Under the Heavy Sun" on the Heavy Sun record, and it, you know, as that song started to form, I realized that it was about an imaginary place that we could go to, some nightclub in outer space where you hang your ego at the door and you come in and you have the greatest time, revisiting some of the fun values of going out and having a fabulous time, but where it's not just for a good time, but where the spirit might rise up out of the ground through hurt and glory. And it's got a lot in it. It's got a lot of optimism, has hope and glory in it, and it's about some faraway imaginary nightclub where there's going to be a cool little band, and the band leader will take you to that place out of your skin.
I think a lot of musicians probably like working with you because you do something different with their music that maybe they hadn't even imagined. So whenever you walk into a studio and you're looking at a musician, maybe it's somebody that you've listened to many of their albums, or maybe it's somebody brand new. Do you have a sense of what you want to do or how you're going to pull them to something that might challenge them?
There's always philosophical exchange with people I work with. let's call it out of the studio time, talking about life, state of the world, aspirations, dreams, talk about values, a moral stance, all that stuff gets talked about. And through those conversations and exchanges, we find out about what lives inside people. But in regards to my responsibility as somebody who wants to do good work with someone, I look for something in them that they might not know about yet, and I take it on as a challenge to pull it out of them somehow or other, and so that it gets what's hidden inside them gets into the music. It's a hard subject matter to talk about because it gets a bit mystical, but I believe that I have a little bit of a talent for drawing the mystery out of somebody.
And you've been doing this since, well, you were a teenager when you started producing, right?
That's right. I was had a recording studio as a teenager, and um, I was very lucky. I got to work with some really great people early on. I worked with Rick James. I think I was about 18 when I worked with Rick, as an example. Imagine that, a Canadian kid with Rick James in his studio in his mother's basement. um, I recorded a lot of gospel records because I was connected with a Christian organization that brought singing quartets in from all over the world. So I got exposed to a lot of wonderful singing and playing and the kind of thing that would be hard to come by in a regular music school. And those are the lessons that really stuck with me, and I built my skills with that kind of information available to me.
I first discovered your music in probably 1989 when Akadi came out. I stumbled across it and put it on, and immediately I loved it. It was a sound that I hadn't heard before. And when I looked at, when you did that, you were already into your later 30s before you recorded your first album. Why did it take you that long to get to the point of saying, okay, now I'm going to do me?
I was very happy to be serving other people. I was a studio rat, and I loved helping people and for them to get to a place that, where we might bump into something special for them. And so I never thought that I was that kind of an artist. And then through my association with Brian Eno, his wife at the time, Anthea Norman Taylor, started a little label called Opal Records. And she invited me to make a record. I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And off I went, and those are the first songs I wrote. And I based them on what had happened to me along the way, family stories and things that I knew about, a French Canadian working in tobacco picking. And so I just drew from real experiences of life, my own experiences. And I found that there was quite a bit to say because it had been stacking up for a while.
Well, it's also you spoke, or you sang in both English and French on that record, which as a first recording, if you wanted to have commercial success in the United States, I'm sure that the powers that be would say, "Oh, don't do that, don't do that." So, has that ever been a concern, though, when you go into a studio, whether you're working with somebody else or on your own material, that you think, "Oh, this has to be commercial," or that's out of the picture?
Yeah. Well, my bilingual song, Jolie Louise, on the Acadie record, is a point of reference here. It was a hit in Paris and not New York.
They have good taste.
But I know what you mean. Sometimes I guess it's a bit of a lesson that I learned working with Brian Eno when he first came to work in my studio. He was very excited about making ambient records, and I helped him with those records, and they were not very commercial records, but they've lived on to be classics, and they wouldn't get played on pop radio, of course, but I think they're quite a substantial rock to stand on because they're beautiful works. And so we we operate more of a snail's pace, but we like to think that quality, gets established along the way. So that's good.
You just said, Brian Eno. You've worked with U2. You've worked with Emmylou Harris, Bob Dylan. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. At this point in your career, I mean, it's an amazing career. It's unlike what most people will ever have. Something that you've worked for, something that you've earned. Is there anything, do you think, that would come your way that would be too daunting for you, that you think, I don't know about this?
Well, that's an interesting idea because there's a lot that I love that I don't do. Uh, I've been listening to hip hop radio, and I'm hearing some sounds on there that are really fantastic, and kids doing things that I don't know how to do. So I wouldn't enter their world to try and tell them what to do. I just sit in the sidelines and appreciate that they appreciate the innovations. Um, so getting invited to the party is one thing, but uh, you know, I wouldn't enter an arena that I couldn't make a contribution to. Let's put it that way. But I like inspiration, and I really get a kick out of people doing innovative things that I've not gotten to, and I treat them as inspirations, the way we always have. I mean, I was inspired by Jimi Hendrix, but I'm not Jimi Hendrix, but I like his sense of innovation, that he was able to harness something, and that he was able to have as a black man, have his music appreciated by a very big white community. Everybody had a Jimi Hendrix record in their library, coming up as kids. And so I'm interested in him as a civil rights figure, every bit as big as the others that are more familiar. If I'm straying off the topic here a little bit, but just what are heroes for? I guess it's what it's about. A hero is a hero, and they might inspire you, but that doesn't mean to say you should be doing the thing that your hero did.
So whenever you wake up in the morning and your studio is there in your home, is it a typical day for you to do music and just go in and see what happens?
Yeah, we're pretty schedule driven. Monday's business day, so today's Monday. I'm talking to you, and we're going to make Wayne Lorenz, who's sitting there grimacing at me, is my co-producer on all recent work, including Heavy Sun, and we're going to make a list of things we'd like to do, things we're dreaming about. Wouldn't it be nice to make that little record I've been talking about for 5 years? Songs from the Tundra. That sounds good, doesn't it? And then we have Todos Santos, where I was working with Wayne for about a year. That's in Mexico, and we have a lot of recordings from that time that never came out. So let's make that psychedelic Todos Santos record. Brian Eno even did an album cover for me that I never used. So we're just gonna put them on display like a war room chart and say these are the 6 things that mean the most to us. And now what should we do about it?
Daniel Lanois has a new record, Heavy Sun, and whenever I hear Daniel Lanois has a new record, my day always gets a little bit brighter. So thank you very much for your time.
Rosemary, it's a pleasure, and it's nice to be speaking to a live wire and a smart cookie like you.
It's a pleasure.